But my thesis is that, you know, you can even remove the names and then remove all these nomenclature. Let the countries go for what works for them. Remember in those days, in the Greek Roman system, people were on the square and determined how they were governed. It wasn't perfect, but it worked for them. Even in Mali, even in Nigeria, there are things you have when there are issues. The elders gathered. In Mali, they have a toguna. People, there's like a hut. In Sierra Leone, they call it palava hut, and things like that. The point is, when there are issues, and there are bound to be issues, they can be contentious and whatever, but you now have a system of dealing with disputes, because that is what it is about: power, distribution of power, and then engagement, like you said, to deliver on what now many call dividends of democracy. And what are they? If somebody has food on his table in far away in all these villages in Nigeria, they wouldn't bother about whether you have a rock at whether there's a rock called Aso or whatever. they will be comfortable. In fact, if you ask them to move, because they are okay, they will say, where do you want us to go? I remember in this country, when you people were transferred abroad in those days, it was an issue because the local currency was stronger. It was like a punishment, but the reverse is the case. Okay, back to democracy. I think the issue really is that the practitioners, and here I'm talking about political actors and the politicians, they are to blame. It is not what names you can call it any name you want, but it is what they decide, what they want to make of it. Senegal example is coming. What happened coming after Liberia? I mean, because people we have already forgotten Liberia. Liberia showed another example out of a star in the midst of George Weah, former footballer, maybe he's a sportsman. When we were talking about these coups, these military juntas that are ruling the 4 countries, they conducted an election where a sitting president lost to because they keep moving, the 2 parties that have been enjoying power. He lost to elect Boakai, an old man who has been there, in the trenches.
Was his deputy, right?
Yes, so now, when he did that, he, just like our own President Jonathan here, he picked up the phone and called, even before the tallies were up, to call Boakai and say to concede. Because that is what is part of the problem. And it happened in Senegal.
In Senegal.
All the 18, there were 19 of them, but about 18 of them called to call. They have not even finished tallying. And then the president, who had taken on the country on a roller coaster that caused all these problems since 2021 because of this tenure elongation or third term thing, now had to call and then felicitate with the young man who is 44, the youngest, and then and they have all had 5 presidents. He's the 5th in their history from 1960. He says a lot about the peaceful transfer that they've all had. And maybe what works for them is the fact that they have one religion, 95% or more belong to one religion. But because in other places, these issues, our politicians play up, they use these cards, religious and ethnic, cards. In Senegal, majority Wolof, their language, or many of them speak, understand, even if they don't speak. And then religion is also something that, but that is also, I've lived there, working for Pan-African News Agency. That is one country that observes the Christian holidays more than the Vatican. Yes, because it's the level of tolerance They tolerate, you know, you don't even know that you are in, because I go to, people go to church, they worship, and then they do the Muslims, they do their own thing. There is no, of course, they have Tuba, an Islamic state in its own. They are operating like Sharia. They have the dress code and all that. But of course, there will be friction. But it works. So what my thesis, like I said, is not so much about, and it is right. Government and governance, they are different. And this nomenclature about democracy or autocracy is because people are looking for, you know, scapegoats. Let the system run, let the institutions run, because, like the ambassador said, credit should go to the population, the civil society in Senegal for what happened. If not so, even the Constitutional Council that intervened, they knew that if they didn't do so, to make sure that the election happened before yesterday, that Macky Sall should leave, that the people were going to go on the streets. But in other places, like in Nigeria, people are afraid. I know there is so much ruthlessness when governments want to come against people when they want to protest. But at the same time, more than 20 people died between 2021 and February, when Macky Sall was on his this misadventure. Because here was a man that was one of those on the vanguard of not allowing President Abdoulaye Wade to go on a third term. Abdoulaye Wade had done 12 years, wanted to go ahead. They stopped him. For somebody who was in that party that did that to now come, he has served as a prime minister, he has served as president or speaker of the House of the National Assembly, and then president for 12 years, and he now wanted to extend. And Seligali said, no, you are not the only one. He brought, when he failed, he reluctantly said he wasn't going to run. He now came through the back door to bring a decree to defer the election. You know, the problem was that the candidate they had, Amadou Ba, who is the prime minister or former prime minister, was not as popular. The Ousmane Sonko, you know, the main opposition leader, because he is now in the background. It was because he couldn't run. They wanted to. The government wanted to stop him with all kinds of things, and then jailed him. And because he's been jailed, he couldn't run. That was how Bashiru Jamil Faye. Now he said, okay, let his supporters support him. And that was what happened. You see the two of them. We have to wait and see this godfatherism and all this, how it works.
All right.
But we will get to the details.
Okay.
So it's about not the name, but what the actors make of the system.